Hello and welcome to the final video in the spell checker tutorial, part 7, the spell check method. This video will show you how to create the main part of our code, the actual spell check method, and this is the most important method in our code because it actually does the checking of all the words. And after we create the method, we will finish our main method, and we will be able to run the program and actually check some input files. Now, the first thing that we want to do, as with all of our methods that we've created so far, is create the header. So it's going to be a vector string, just like most of our other methods, and it's called check spelling. And this time there are 3 different parameters: vector string input, vector string dict, and vector integer starts. Now, the things that we will be putting into these parameters are the input file right here will be the input, dict will be the dict, and starts will be the starts. And when we actually implement this in our main method. So first thing we're going to do, or the second thing we're going to do, is actually create the method. Vector string gets check spelling, obviously, check spelling, and actually we can just copy and paste these so we don't have to type everything again. So Control C and Control V. Open close brackets, enter down a few times, and we will be actually writing our spell check method. Now, the first thing that we're going to want to type here is a new data type that we have not used yet, which is Boolean, and it will be called is equal. Now, we don't need to set that to anything, so right now it will be null. A Boolean is just a true or false statement. It's pretty simple. You should already know that. So we're going to create a for loop. Unsigned int I equals 0. I is less than input dot size, open close parentheses, semicolon, I plus plus. Now this loop will go through all your words in the input vector, which just contains every single word that you have input into here. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words long. So this loop will run 5 times. Now this is our outer main for loop. So everything, only 2 lines will not be inside of this for loop. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to set is equal to false. Now the reason that we are going to do that is because we need to set it equal to true if we find that it is contained within the dictionary, if this word that we're looping through is contained in the dictionary. So the second thing we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to create a temporary string called string temp equals to lower, and the parameter, if you remember correctly, is a string right here. So we need to put a string in there right here, which will be input I. So every single time it runs through this, it will set temp equal to a new string, which is the lowercase value of that specific iteration of the vector here. The next thing that we need is a vector int whoops, start and length equals without punct. And if you remember correctly, our without punct method needs a string right here to work. So we will set that our vector here to the temporary variable, except for it's now without punctuation and it has the correct lengths. So right here we now have a temporary variable that is the lowercase value of the input, and we also have the starting substring and the length that we need to check into. So let's see, we can create a comment here. 1 second. And so we can create some comments here. So go through each word in the input file. This one will create a temporary string variable, and this one will get the starting substring and length and parentheses that we need to check of every word as we go along through the program. Now we need to create an integer called iStart, and then we can finally do the checking. So our outer if statement is if start and length 1. So this is basically just calling the second number in our start and length vector here. So it's just saying if the length of the word is less than 29. If it's not less than 29, then it's never going to be a word, because the longest word in our dictionary here is 29 letters long. So if it's not less than 29, then we don't even need to go through all the checking and everything. Okay, so we can say iStart equals start and length 1 minus 1. So that will just set a pre-established variable, so we will be able to check every single word, or every single word in the input file. So we will create a comment here that says set iStart to the line in the dictionary that it changes lengths. So right here we can see that we have used our vector of type int starts, and we have secured the position in the dictionary in which it changes line lengths of that specific length of the word. So right now we have, so the first time it'll run through this, it will be hello. The word will be hello. So right here we have made it all lowercase, which we didn't really need to do because it was already lowercase. We have gotten the start and the length without punctuation. So the start will be 0 because there is no quotation mark at the beginning, and the length will be 5 because there is nothing at the end. So we do iStart and then set that equal to the length or the line in the dictionary that is 5 letters long, if you follow me there. So we need to scroll up here, and right when it gets to 5 letters, let's see, here we go. So these are all the 5-letter words. So now iStart will be at approximately, it'll probably be around 7,000 or 8,000, and now that this as I said before, the starts will allow us to not have to check through every single letter or word in the entire dictionary. So now it's only going to check any words that are 5 letters long. So now that we've done that, we can create a for loop that says int j equals I start. J is less than, J is less than starts, start and length 1, and then we will be able to do j plus plus. Now the reason I use j is because I already used I in this one, and if I try to use I there, it'll say I already declared that variable. See, there's a little errors right there. So if it's a nested for loop like this one right here, then it will cause an error, obviously. So right here, this is just looping through every single 5-letter word. So now that we've obtained the start and stop of all the lengths of the 5-letter words, now we can actually check to see if it is equal to every single one of those words in that dictionary. So if temp dot substring start and length 0, comma, start and length 1 is equal to dict j, then we can say is equals true. So now we oh, look at that, it is true. We have found a word in the dictionary that is the exact same thing as what they inputted, so we do not need to tell them that one's wrong. So we can break, and this will break this for loop right here. And then after all these 3 brackets right here, we can say if is equals false. So that means if it never hit this statement right here, because it was never actually equal to anything in the dictionary, we will tell them to capitalize that word. So that's how we're going to let the people know if the word is incorrect, because you can't really underline things in the console. So we're just going to capitalize that word completely. So in all caps, then that word will be incorrect. So we'll just let them know that every single word in all caps is incorrect. Now we can just get rid of some of these spaces here. So we use our 2 upper here, and then we can return input. So now we can just write some quick comments so we can let us know in the future if we ever come back and look at this. So we can say set to uppercase if not equal, and right here we can say breaking inner for loop, so we just know which one actually trying to do. And right here, this is probably the most confusing part, so we'll write a comment here. So it will go through each word of each section in the dictionary based on the length of the word. So we can just say based on length. So if we did not have this statement right here and this statement right here, then it would have to loop through 118,000 words every single time you wanted to check a single word. So in order to shorten that, we found the length of the word and checked it with only words that were in that length. Now if you wanted to further shorten this checking method, which would actually be more code, which is kind of ironic, you'd have to write more code, but it would shorten the time it takes you could do it by alphabetical order, which would only check, it would only end up checking words that were of that length and that started with that specific letter. So now that we have completed our check spelling method, we can build. And there should be no errors, hopefully. And look at that, there are no errors. But if we run something, nothing will be different because we have never added anything to our main method here. So right after this get char, we are done with the import section of our code, so we can just write a little comment here saying that it is time to check the spelling. So check spelling, and we are no longer loading anything into the file here. So we can clear the console with system CLS. We can tell them it is checking. Let me capitalize that. Checking. Hopefully, if I can type. And we can say, well, we'll just do inline there to go. My goodness, inline. And now this is the part of the program that will take the most time during runtime because it has to actually check every single word. So input equals check spelling, and our three parameters are the input, dict, and starts. So right here, once this line of code is running, you will not be able to get back what the input file already was. So this is permanently changing what that input file is, and it will be capitalizing any words that oh, we don't need a comment there. Well, I guess it'd be probably a good idea to have a comment. Okay, so we can say check spelling and change the input string array. Okay, so now that we have told them it is checking the words, obviously, we can, once that's done, we can do a system CLS, which will just clear the console for us really quick, and we can print out the actual output. So we're going to tell them that any words in all caps, well, we can say any word in all caps is incorrect. And then we can make a new line, and in that line, so there'll be a little space in between our output, and then we're going to have to create a for loop to output this string array. So we can say unsigned int I equals 0, I is less than input dot size. So this for loop will be just looping through every word and outputting it. There's no manipulation, there's just a cout in there. So input I, and then we're gonna put a space in between each word, and then we're gonna make our last line cout in the line, and then for our final cout, well, actually no, I guess we can, yeah, we can, okay, cout. We can put a thing in there to make a little bit more space, and then we can say, well, actually, let's make this more readable. So we can put some hyphens in there, like a bunch of hyphens, so they know when that's over. So we can copy paste here, so we have the same amount. So before and after the output file, there should be some some hyphens so we know when it's over. And then we can say press enter to exit. And now we can do that. And end line. And now we can build it, and there should be no errors. And now we can finally run our program to the full extent for the first time, but let's just write a single word first. So hello. Hello world. We're going to 2 words. We have to Control S every single time we want to do it. Build it again. Build succeeded. And we can run our program. And it says loading dictionary like we said. It's loading, it's loading. It's looping through every single one and inputting it. It's getting the starts of every single letter like we told it to do, or every single length of the word like we told it. And okay, here we go. Press enter to continue. And now it's loading the input file. And as we can see, we use the system clear so it doesn't it would just keep on stacking down and down and down farther until we'd have to scroll down to see all the text. That's why we use the system clear. We press enter to continue, and it says it's checking the file now. The moment of truth. When this is done, it should output any errors in our program, which should be none, hopefully, right now. Uh-oh. We had an error. Oh, look at that. We forgot to put the get char thing in there, which will stop. If you don't put this in here, it won't stop to wait for you to look at it or anything. So we have to build that again. That's my bad. I will pause it and restart it when it's checking. Okay, I just paused it and just waited for it to get past that part so we don't burn up a bunch of video space here. And it's checking and it's checking. It worked last time, it just did not give us enough time to see it. So look at that, our text file in here has nothing in all caps, so that means they are both words. So now we can enter to exit, and this time, our final time, we're going to type something that is incorrect. So we're going to go hello world, and this time we're going to add an exclamation point there to prove that our without punctuation thing works, and then we're going to misspell a word. So let's say I am reading we can spell reading wrong. So let's say we accidentally hit the F on the end of reading instead of the G, and we can say a book, and then we accidentally hit the L on the end of that. So we can do Control S, build, nothing failed, run. I'm going to pause it right here. Oh, and we have an error, and it says expression vector subscript out of range. So that means that we did not build. So we can just break the program here, and that means we did not build the program after we saved the input text. Yes, we want to stop debugging, obviously. So we can save this and build this, and nothing failed. We can run again. Sorry, that was my bad. Here we go. And it gave us another error. So I am going to pause the video and check to make sure my code is correct. And I have found the error. It was actually because our without punct method was incorrect. So if you are not already there, open your without punct method by using a little plus sign, and instead of start and length I, it should be start and length 1. This was causing an out of bounds exception error because it was only start and length only has 2 things in it, and if you try to do something higher than 1, which is because the arrays start at 0, if you try to do something higher than 1, it will cause an out of bounds exception error, and there will be some issues with that, obviously, as we can see. So we can build that now. So all 4 of those right there should be changed to 1 instead of I. That is completely my bad. I am sorry. So now we can leave our text file like it was. I had to change mine to do some testing, see what was wrong. So I'm going to say mine, I am reading, I think this is already what it was, a book, and then with an L on the end, I think that's what it was. And we can Control S and build and run. Now it is checking, and hopefully there will be no errors in this time. Looping through all the words, and look at that, it finally worked. And if we can go to our input thing over here, which we won't be able to because it'll show on top of it, we can see that hello world with an exclamation point, the exclamation point is excluded, and it now says I am reading a book, but instead of just a lowercase reading like it says in there, it is uppercase because it is wrong, and a book because it has an L in there is also wrong. And now we can hit enter to exit, and there we go. That concludes this entire tutorial. I'm sorry for the mistakes that I made a little bit earlier in the video, but hopefully you understood all the topic, and you can now have a simple spell checker. Thank you for watching. This has been the spell checker tutorial.